understanding how your soil system functions. That's number one. There's this movement through the country where people are realizing, you know what? If we farm nature's way, we start saving in inputs. Does nature disrupt itself? It doesn't do that. And if you can learn the principles, I call them the keys to the soil health, is limit disturbance, cover the soil all the time with diversity, 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 have a live root growing all the time. That's what nature does.
This side did not have compost and it did not have tea. There is no commercial fertilizer on any of it. This side is running purely off the energy of last year's cover crop. These 4 cornfields are probably one of the best examples of the power of diversity that I can show you. The power of diversity is extremely strong.
Now we're getting to it. Oh my goodness, it's the soil biology. You mean those little arthropods, the bacteria, the fungus, all these critters make organic matter. Oh, by the way, you can't have the soil biology without the plants. And the plants need the microbes. Isn't the soil look beautiful? Who would have thought the soil looked something like that? Our job, landowners, is to manage that habitat right here, that pore space.
And cover crops play a real role of importance here because they allow the harvest of additional sunlight. So no longer are you terminating sunlight harvest at harvest time for the crop. Now the cover crop goes on after, and consequently you have more opportunity to harvest additional sunlight. That sunlight gets harvested by the cover crop and ultimately is carbon in the soil.
A chemical reaction which happens and converts sunlight energy into chemical energy, which is sugars, it's carbohydrates. Those carbohydrates then get pumped into the plant and all down through the plant, and the plants are able to make up to 100,000 different compounds from that process, which is absolutely amazing. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah. So in this process, what actually happens is the carbon that actually goes down through the plant into the roots is actually feeding microbes in the soil. Those microbes in the soil are then feeding the plant, and I'll explain how they do that in a few minutes. They feed the plant, and so the plant grows. All the shoots, about half of it goes into the roots, and out of that goes into the roots to grow more root material, around about 20, well they've actually measured, scientifically proven, 21% of all the carbon that's produced up here, it's taken up top, is actually pumped into the soil to actually feed what? Gotcha, that's on. No, to feed the microbes. It actually goes into the soil to feed microbiology. So that's the little bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, the nematodes. Probably feeds a few worms while you're down there. But the whole process is about feeding biology in the soil. And what do you think they do in the soil? What happens in the soil then? They bring back the nutrients to the plant.
Cover crop combinations, one of the advantages of them is you can adjust the carbon-nitrogen ratio to what you want or need. Whereas when you planted a monoculture, you could not adjust it.
My first impression of Ray, I thought, boy, this man's crazy. But the more I listened to him, I decided that he probably done and forgot more than I'll ever know about cover crops.
He included Facilium, and specifically to try to improve the scenario with the pollinators. When you would walk into this field, if you would walk in and close your eyes, it was just alive with sound. Questions that a lot of the farmers ask us is, well, why would I plant a cover crop and use up all of my water? And so to help address that, we took the profile 1 foot increments to the 4 foot profile. And we did that in the field that had the cover crops in, and then we also did that in the field next to it, which did not have the cover crop in it. We had 3.07. And so what was occurring was we essentially recharged the profile back on the cover crop side to within 0.04 of an inch of precip. So essentially they came out virtually the same. In addition, the cover crop side was rather clean the next spring. We really had no weed pressure on it, whereas the side that did not have the cover crop had a lot of winter annuals.
The rolling down definitely gives a lot of benefits in weed control. Having that uniform mat of heavy residue down only allowed sun to penetrate where you were planting.
Weeds just can't come up through that thick mat. We had a 98% weed control. Good weed control this year.
But what Nathan showed me in some nearby fields just blew me away.
What we're looking at here is two different producers that have two different management types for the cotton rotation that they're currently in. We did take some soil temperature readings back when it was 105 one day, and the field on the left, you can see, was more or less reading 105 at an inch deep. The field on the right was reading 85. So we had right around an approximate 20-degree difference in soil temperature between those two fields. And just looking at, side-by-side comparison, it tells the tale.
When they started into their no-till system in 2001, their average soil organic matter was 1.5%, but they also had some fields that were less than 1%. And now 9 years later, they are averaging 2.5. So they had about a 1% improvement in soil organic matter, and your soils are going to function at a much better level anytime we can get above 1%. If we look at that same improvement in soil organic matter from a nutrient manner, we can see that for every 1% mineralizing at 2 to 3%, there's going to be about a 20 to 30 pounds of usable N that would be mineralized over the course of a year, approximately. Now, when we go to 2%, when they improve to 2%, all of a sudden the 20 to 30 pounds becomes 40 to 60 pounds of usable N per acre. And so there was a real significant gain, not only in water, terms of water and being able to hold water, but also in terms of nutrient.
Cover crop mix that we use could provide you anywhere from 50 to 150 units of nitrogen. At current nitrogen cost per unit pound, it's more than paid for itself.
The last 7 years we've reduced our fertilizer costs by as much as 75%, and I'm really hoping that in the next 2 years I can learn to reduce it to zero.
I haven't used any nitrogen on my corn since 1996.
We've cut our fertilizer by 90% and our herbicide use by 75%. And we have not reached a plateau yet. I don't believe that anyone knows where the plateau is, and we think that we're just going to keep pushing the system forward and see where it takes us from here.
We definitely have seen the moisture retention, and with the soil health improving, we're just seeing a lot healthier crops that we're planting.
Got a pretty decent stand. As you can see, it's the spots have filled in great, and they still have a whole lot of residue left on the ground, and the ground's still real moist. I'm just tickled to death with it.
Our average yield in Burleigh County on corn over the last 5 years is 100 bushels per acre. So if we looked at the west side, we had a yield of 122 bushels of corn on the west side. It had no commercial fertilizer, no compost tea, no compost, but it was planted into last year's full season cover crop. Now on the east half, we had no commercial fertilizer, but we did put on 2 compost tea applications, and we did put on 1 to 2 tons of compost. That field yielded 129 bushels. But this is one of the better examples I can give you of the power of diversity.
Our first year that we did the cover crops, we saw a small yield increase. Typical corn yields were 120 to 150 bushel corn. That year we were seeing where we had the cover crops 170, 180 bushel corn, in comparison to where we had the 150 right beside it.
Well, we had some good corn, 150, 75 bushel corn. And I'd say where I used cover crops, they were 10% better. But if you put a pencil to it, and what you eventually going to get out of it is cheap.
Well, if you could take $7 corn, cover crops doubled what it cost us to put in. It made us money. With corn at $6.50 to $7, you know, you got cotton in the 90 to $1 a pound range. You cannot afford to leave anything on the table.
More producers are becoming aware of it, whether they see it or hear it from me, hopefully see it or hear it from their neighbor. It makes me feel good to actually know that we've addressed the resource and are doing good things to help conserve it.